This, to me, is probably the most surprising panel, construction and AI. Who would have thought it? In the construction sector, AI is being used to reshape the process, improve efficiency, and drive innovation. Here to steer the conversation on how dynamic the intersection is between technology and construction, and to show us what's next and how AI is being leveraged, please let's welcome our Canadian industry leader, CEO Brainbox AI, Sam Ramadori. Senior Vice President, Digital and Data Engineering of Ellis Dawn, Brandon Milner. Vice President, Pre-Construction for Pomerleau, Montreal, Quebec, and Ottawa, Sean Boyer. From Simplex, Didier Abivant. And from Groupe Canam, Daniel Barbeau. Last but not least, from l'École de Technologie Supérieure, Ali Motamedi. So I'm going to talk format a little bit. We're going to speak with Sam for 15 minutes, and then we'll bring in the other gentlemen, and pièce de résistance will be Ali, to bring it all together. No pressure, Ali. Sam, let's set the table. Talk to us a little bit about Brainbox and its purpose.
Sure. Thanks, Martine, for having us. Brainbox AI started about 7 or 8 years ago with the goal of using the new capabilities, the gifts that we get from artificial intelligence. In our case, the idea was to really find a scalable way to apply, in our case, autonomous artificial intelligence to the way we heat and cool our buildings. And even though the HVAC systems in buildings is not the most exciting topic in the world, it accounts for just a huge amount of energy consumption on our planet. So that turns it into a climate problem we have to face. In fact, the whole panel here has a contribution to make on that front.
And we should be very proud about Brainbox and your success here, but your success outside of Canada. Talk to us a little bit about that success internationally. Talk to us about how you got visibility and a little bit about what's next.
Sure. So we born here in Montreal. Most of our team is here in Montreal, though we have team members a bit all around the world at this point. And the goal at the beginning, at the founding of Brainbox, was not only to use artificial intelligence to make that building much more efficient than it is today, but also to do it in a scalable fashion. And that means we're not going in installing hundreds of pieces of equipment. Ideally, it's one edge device or even zero. If there's particular systems, we can download software and go without any hardware. So imagine being able to optimize a building meaningfully without even being there. And that's been our goal since the beginning. And with that in mind, we've been able to deploy buildings. Of course, we started in our own city, but then quickly went to, I think our first building outside of Canada ended up being in Australia, not even in the US. So we couldn't have gone farther, but that's the whole goal of the technology, is really to be able to deploy buildings at mass scale. Today, North America, the US is our biggest market, but we have buildings that are installed and running in Europe, Middle East, Australia, New Zealand, and Asia is next to tackle, as is South America.
So if I say COP26, what comes to mind?
Yeah, so we had that was our first introduction to a COP. It was quite the event for us. We have our marketing gurus here in the room, and we got behind that event. I mean, again, everyone on this panel here is responsible for a big portion or making a difference in terms of the emissions from buildings. So we carry a heavy load, and our goal was to showcase the technology. And at COP26, which was the big one in Glasgow, there was an award created, call it the best climate tech solution. They chose 15 finalists. We got to go to Glasgow and present, which would have been, frankly, just enough right there, because it was an amazing experience. But then we ended up winning the competition. So obviously the exposure grew very quickly from there.
So if I ask you, first part, what are you excited about, what's coming next, but also what scares you? about what's coming next?
Sure, sure. So in our case, to give the example of when you refer to what's coming next, is when you're playing with artificial intelligence, and of course everyone in this room has seen about generative AI as a prime example over the last 9-10 months. It's amazing what new capabilities just keep coming and coming. In our case, our goal was to plug into a single building and optimize that single building from a cloud connection. Period. And over time, we came up with the idea of, rather than just optimizing one building, what happens when you have 20 buildings or 50 buildings or 1,000 buildings in a region? What can you do to support the energy transition? So our whole world is moving towards renewable energy, which is fantastic. The deployments are going actually quite quickly, maybe not quickly enough, but quite quickly. The problem is when you're deploying renewable energy and it starts becoming an important part of your total energy mix, you start running into problems because of the intermittency of renewable energy. So wind not shining and wind not blowing, sun not shining. And so that intermittency means we need something else on the other side to help us balance that, and that is flexibility in how we use energy. We've never really paid attention to that. We go home, we turn on the switch, we expect the light to go on, we expect our buildings to be warm or cooled in the summer. There's no really thinking about flexibility, but the new world we're entering in, we need that flexibility quite desperately. And so our goal was to not just take one building, but let's take 100 or 1,000 buildings together and make them react to the needs of the utility grid, the energy grid that it's happening right now. So if there's a moment this afternoon where the grid is under stress and we need people to reduce their consumption, well, 100 or 1,000 AI-enabled buildings can start cooperating with each other and start reducing peaks for that moment in time where the grid is in need of that flexibility. So for us, that's what comes next.
And I feel like this is going to be more and more in demand.
Yeah, it's a must. So everything you read about people building grid-scale batteries, like Tesla is doing a little bit around the world, and others, that's the same need for flexibility, and it's growing really, really quickly.
And is there something that you worry about what's next, something that scares you, or?
Sure. I mean, it's now topical. I think what happened with generative AI is it really showed the world what was possible. If you were playing or working with artificial intelligence before, it was always in a back office. If it ran on our phones, it was running in the background. If it's used for making a healthcare decision, it's running in the background. Generative AI gave now a new level of capabilities from AI, but gave it and put it in our hands as the public. And I think when you start using it and realizing what it can do and extrapolating what the exciting parts of the future are, it also comes with the more challenging applications to it in the wrong hands or someone with just nefarious goals. So for sure we are at Brainbox AI quite strong believers that some form of structure and regulation needs to come around that. This morning the announcement from Minister Champagne and that initial voluntary code is a good start, but we need to put something in place because the capabilities are incredibly powerful. It's exciting, but just applied in the wrong way means the exact opposite. Worrisome.
And you're such great ambassador, Brainbox and you individually. You're such an ambassador of Canadian success. Do you feel like the media covers you enough, covers the success outside of Canada enough?
I have a personal mission that I'm often communicating to anyone that will listen, but particularly the governments. I get a bit frustrated when we're traveling abroad, presenting our own technology, and then people say, where are you based? We say Montreal. Oh, okay, that's interesting. How come Montreal? And well, you realize Montreal and Toronto are the two of the major global hubs for the AI, right? You know that. Oh, really? I didn't know that. And after 10 times, 20 times, you get very tired of that answer. But as a reminder that we need to be doing more, reminding the rest of the world about the champions that we're building here, the incredible research that's happening here. I mean, we want it to benefit our economy, our growth, et cetera. We also want solutions to solve some of our planet's major problems. But it is a personal pet peeve that not enough people outside of our country know that we are the hub or important hubs for AI.
I think this conference is a good start.
Yep.
So
yep.
We should be thankful for that. Do you find that the partnership between government and the AI community is where it should be?
I don't want to always be the one that's always complaining, though I'm very good at it. But there, I will give some kudos to the various levels of government. Like we've created some incredible institutions here. If it's not Ivado or Mila, or if it's not the Vector Institute, if it's not some of just the incredible teams at our local universities in terms of their AI capabilities, we at Brainbox AI tap in regularly into that ecosystem, and I truly mean regularly, to work on projects, to be applying cutting-edge AI, in our case, to buildings. So we are constantly doing that, and I think it's one of our advantages. Again, we should be screaming that off the rooftops, right? There's another example that we have to go abroad and explain who, let's say, Mila is when it's got an incredible number, like 1,000 researchers doing cutting-edge work. I mean, that name should be rolling off of people's tongues everywhere. Right?
And if you had to pick 3, 4 words to describe the vibrancy of the AI community here in Montreal, if you're in an elevator with someone from outside of Montreal, how do you describe it?
Number one, I would say kind of fearless, cutting edge. Again, I'm not sure here we celebrate enough of what's coming out of our institutions, and I would say just pushing the envelope constantly is definitely what we do here. And I mean here, broadly speaking, the Canadian ecosystem, the Quebec ecosystem, for sure. So kind of fearless innovation, we're going to push ahead. I'd also say we do quite well with the limited funds we have, because we have to the south the neighbor that, when they want to get behind something, they're pulling out hundreds of millions and billions of dollars at a time.
So one of the things you're saying is that you're not getting enough funding.
Like, I want to be realistic. Canada's 37 million people, 38 million people, and the south of the border is 10 times that. So you have to be somewhat realistic. Would love to see more funding to go into the sector, but we do have many needs across this country of ours. I would say it's good. I think there's good progress. There's always room for more, and I think we got to get behind our AI champions in this country as well. The other thing I complain about is the last thing we need is another BlackBerry moment. Yeah. So we have the advantage right now. We have it. Mm-hmm. What are we going to do with it?
Is the BlackBerry coming back? I miss it.
You miss it? School. You missed the key. Yeah, sorry. I don't think so.
Not? Okay.
I don't think so.
We met not long ago, and from the moment that I heard you speak, I was like, okay, I want to drink the water this guy is drinking, because you're very optimistic and your success is so impressive, but I see the passion that you have. If you could leave us with some wise words about how to make it in this industry and how to break through.
I mean, we have a particular mission at Brainbox, so I might turn the question just a little bit.
Sure.
If there's passion at Brainbox, and I always say we have people working for us that have no business working for us, because they can work in much bigger companies and larger companies, et cetera, but we have a team that's passionate about making a difference, and we are working one of the big emissions categories of this planet. So a lot of the passion at Brainbox, and I guess whatever I can provide, is the fact that, I'll say this bluntly, we're in the fight of our lives, period. It may not happen in 5 years, but we're in a 50-year fight of our lives. And insofar as AI can do something, and it can, we want to make sure that it's one of the scalable solutions to this problem. There's many physical-related solutions, but AI can really make a difference. We believe in that wholeheartedly at the shop, and driven by it immensely. So if I could leave something with the room, is we have a big challenge ahead of us. Just roll up the sleeves and let's go make it happen, and let's push our own governments as well to make sure that it happens as well.
Sam, I wish you much success. We should be very proud of how you represent us here, but also elsewhere. Stick with us. Stay with us. We're going to talk with the colleagues. So I said at the beginning I was very surprised to hear that there was AI in construction. I had no idea. What don't I understand? And explain to me how AI is making construction better or different. Start with you.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. I actually kind of want to change roles and start working for Brainbox now after I was pretty inspired. Construction industry is typically very slow to adopt technology generally, but it's very similar to 5, 8 years ago, the fintech and the prop tech space, where there were a lot of players in the space, and it's hard to pick a horse to bet on. But slowly, the adoption of technology has increased. I think people are picking the right technology that fits their projects and their sites. And as my peers can probably attest, no construction project is the same. Everything's different. But I think where AI is really coming into its forays are things around predictive analytics, autonomous construction vehicles, health and safety, quality control, and obviously sustainability is a big portion of that. But these are the things where I think will start to change and evolve and accelerate the industry. I think there was always traditionally a fear that AI would take people's jobs, but now I think there's more of an adoption around that, specifically around things like quality control and safety that can augment, a safety engineer's role on site, where you can put cameras up now, and now you can do more predictive quality and fault detection maintenance and things like that. So some of it's sexy, some of it's not so sexy, particularly around the predictive analytics. So at Elliston, we employ quite a lot of AI-driven programs around documentation, bids, our site specs, things like that. So it's an interesting time, but yeah.
Can you, without revealing too many secrets, talk to us about a project that you're excited about right now, where AI comes to play?
So I think one of the things that's traditionally really difficult in construction and very time-consuming is estimating and time. It's a very time-sensitive endeavor, and human capital is expensive. So we actually employed a company, one of a Canadian company, Toggle.ai, to do all of our takeoffs, so that we took all of our PDFs and floor plans, loaded it through Toggle, and that basically automatically helped the estimators count the number of doors and floors and ceilings and light bulbs and all the fixtures and wonderful thing that's going to construction site that's typically done very manually by looking at a PDF. Using AI sped up the process incredibly. So employing those kind of technologies, we run a lot of pilots at Elliston to test these out, and that seems to be one of the things that are,
That's changing the way you've been doing business.
Yeah, for sure.
Sean, does this ring a bell a little bit? How is AI changing business for you?
Definitely, and like you were saying, one place that we are seeing a huge impact right now in the industry is in pre-construction. So when you're talking about estimation, it's also the design build part. It's also all the pre-con you're doing, RFPs. And we saw years ago a huge potential. Back in 2017, we realized that we were not using all the data we had, all the costs, all the historical cost data that we had also. So yes, you are saving a lot of time for estimators when you are using tools like Toggle AI, and there are a bunch of others out there. But you also need to look at all the costs that you're driving. And there's one place where you're using and going through a bunch of estimates. It's an estimation. You'll probably estimate 2, 3, 4 times more projects a year than you are building projects. So the information from construction takes a lot more years to get some feedback and get KPIs back from them. And especially companies like Pomerleau and Elliston, we're doing projects that are 2, 3, 4 years long. Whereas in estimating, it takes a couple months. So we saw a huge potential back in 2017. And 3 years ago, we were approached by Zeton Systems here in Montreal, and they started analyzing our data, and they saw a potential of doing maybe even some cost predictions. So it's one thing to do takeoff, but if you can even have tools that help the estimators with guiding them with estimation, and even for me as a manager or as a VP, making decisions. Clients come to see us, and sometimes they don't necessarily know they have the right budget. So we were all like running like chickens with no heads back then, and you got estimators across the country going through estimates and trying to find information. So we decided to centralize all of that, put it in a central system. And so we did a proof of concept 3 years ago to see if AI could really help us predict costs, not as a tool to close jobs, but more as a tool to guide us as estimators and help us with clients. And after a couple of months working with the ZTAN and sharing our information and data, it actually showed us that there was a potential. So 2 years ago, we started this partnership with them. And this summer, we started using our first version of an AI tool that can predict costs. And it predicts costs not in all types of projects because it all relies on the quality of the data. And we realized 5 years ago that our data wasn't standardized, and that's probably one of the biggest issues, is getting all your data standardized throughout the company. So in some projects, when we're using this tool, we'll get confidence level of maybe 90%, maybe high 90s. In other cases, we're at 30, 40%. So what we're looking at in the next couple of years is adding tools like Toggle AI, but having like a whole central system where everything, all the tools are talking to each other. So you'll be able to have some cost prediction. You'll be doing some takeoff. You'll be reducing time from estimators. You'll have AI that is analyzing documents for you, maybe even an integrated sort of chat GPT to help estimators. So the future is there, is having a unique one tool that is interconnected.
Très bien. Didier, parlez-nous un peu de l'arrivée de l'intelligence artificielle chez Simplex. Est-ce que vous avez été surpris?
Pardon?
Est-ce que vous avez été surpris de la manière dont l'intelligence artificielle est arrivée chez vous?
Non, ça a été une suite logique, en fin de compte, l'introduction de l'intelligence artificielle chez Simplex. Il y a environ 7 ans, nous avons changé tout notre système informatique et on a mis en place beaucoup de mesures sur la performance de l'allocation. Et ce qu'on s'est rendu compte, c'est qu'on avait beaucoup d'informations. On avait la chance aussi d'être accompagné avec une compagnie qui connaissait bien notre business, qui nous supportait au niveau TI et qui avait l'expérience au niveau du AI. Donc, on a parlé justement de comment on pouvait valoriser les informations qu'on avait dans le système pour pouvoir nous aider justement à être plus performants. Donc, c'était comme une suite logique, en fin de compte, de l'intégration du AI chez Simplex. Et d'ailleurs, au niveau de notre chaîne d'approvisionnement, la première étape dans l'allocation, c'est la demande. Et en fin de compte, la demande est très importante justement sur la gestion de la disponibilité, la gestion du taux d'utilisation, qui est en fin de compte la raison d'être de l'allocation, c'est comment on peut maximiser en fin de compte l'actif que l'on a, donc comment on peut améliorer le taux d'utilisation. Donc c'était tout à fait, c'était normal, mais par contre, on verra plus tard dans les prochaines questions, on a eu beaucoup aussi d'apprentissage à l'intérieur de ça, parce que c'était pas nécessairement naturel pour l'ensemble de l'entreprise d'introduire le AI.
On va y revenir. Daniel, parlez-nous de comment l'IA a changé votre industrie pour vous, basé sur votre expérience.
Okay, so Can-Am Group is a huge structural steel manufacturer, been there for 60 plus years, so an old industry with an old company. We started our journey with AI around 5 years ago, so we have a strong manufacturing DNA and a strong lean initiatives around the organization. So we're pretty good at finding problems, identifying problems, and at some point in time, through our innovation services, we started looking at those problems for solution and started experimenting with what AI had to offer on different targeted proof of concept for safety, for quality control, for costing. I totally agree with these two guys that costing is a huge thing. So from successful proof of concept, we were able to secure a project with Invest AI that was in 2020. to develop a quality control system on one of our production line to detect missing wells. So very early in the process, instead of having lagging indicator, we are now able to detect missing wells as they occur, and we are able to fix the product. So we kept on going with this journey and preaching a lot around the organization about what AI can offer and present it as a problem-solving toolkit. So nothing magic, just a toolkit that can solve problem if you feed it the right data and you ask it the right question. So we were able to target a very complex problem for us through the Scale AI grant, partnering with Move AI on this project. And our goal here is to predict the characteristic of our product. So we're not even in costing now, we're trying to predict the product itself. So everybody in the supply chain holds a part of the information required to seal the product and put it into production. Our production time is around 1, 2, 3, 4 hours per product, and the lead time before that is around 60 days to gather all the required information in order to be able to produce that product. So our goal now is to streamline that finding or that guessing game that we call estimation about and provide an early version of the product with a certain level of accuracy and provide it around the supply chain for other people to make their decision around our prediction. And that we are very confident it can streamline the decision making inside the company for procurement, production, transportation, installation, and all these groups that depends on the product characteristic to move forward with their own process within the organization, but also helping the engineer of record see the product, see the detailed results of their engineering decision. Oh, I didn't thought it would be that big. I didn't thought it would be that heavy. So all these things, we always find them afterwards. Now, with our project, we hope to be able to provide it very early in the process and provide value early into the pre-construction phases of the construction.
But you must face resistance, no? Sometimes when you present a product or you suggest a certain route, what type of resistance do you have to deal with?
So there's kind of two types of person. Unfortunately, they're at both ends of the spectrum. So some of them believe AI is magical. So you just feed it anything and it provides you with a magical result.
So AI is not magical.
It's not. And on the other end, we have the skeptical people. So we provided models with 10 variables showing how 3 of them were dealing with much of the prediction. And these people just left and did develop a model out of these 3 variables, providing, hey, I can do the same as you. Yeah, but I kind of led you through the door with providing these insight on the methodology. So this is mainly the obstacle we're facing. And also, we have to fight against a new type of investment. So AI is intangible. It's difficult to understand for many people. So when it's time to invest on a new machine, on a new production line, or on a $1 million AI system, it's very hard to compete against our manufacturing DNA inside the organization.
So often when we speak about resistance, it's linked to the learning curve. And so, Didier, vous avez mentionné la courbe d'apprentissage qui a été peut-être houleuse. Parlez-nous un peu des obstacles ou des difficultés que vous avez rencontrées.
La courbe d'apprentissage, c'est que le AI est basé sur la donnée. Et souvent, la culture de la donnée n'est pas nécessairement présente. Donc, on a appris, justement, en passant beaucoup de temps à comprendre la donnée qui était rentrée, qu'il y avait beaucoup de travail à faire, en particulier en termes de gouvernance. Ça nous a permis justement de revoir certains de nos processus pour avoir justement cette qualité de données, parce que tout projet de AI est basé sur une qualité de données. Si on n'a pas la qualité de données, on n'a pas un bon résultat au niveau de notre modèle. Donc ça a été un apprentissage. Je suis d'accord aussi avec ce que... Il y a des gens qui pensent que le AI, ça règle c'est facile, là, ça règle tous les problèmes, ça automatise tout. Alors je pense qu'il faut aussi gérer les attentes des gens. Et autrement, d'un point de vue, je te dirais, terrain, Je pense que ce qui est important au niveau du AI, c'est de faire participer les gens justement à la recherche des solutions, à la compréhension des données, pour les amener justement dans cette culture de données que je parle, qui est importante. Parce que avant la culture du AI, c'est la culture de la donnée. Donc, leur faire comprendre l'importance de la donnée, que quand tu mets cette donnée-là, ben, elle sert à ça, et pourquoi il est important qu'elle soit juste. Donc, faire participer les gens. Donc, c'est ça la clé du succès, mais on l'apprend quand on arrive face au mur, où il faut travailler avec les gens.
Besides the learning curve, Sean, Brandon, I want to hear you about what you're excited for in the next steps, in the marriage between AI and construction.
I'll start. Okay.
You can go.
Yeah, well, it's
You
okay.
start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm excited about, I go from a real experience. I felt like a kid this summer. First time I used the tool developed by Zetan. For 3 years, you're not believing in it. Like I'm one of those that I'm very analytical. You meet this great team. They're all brilliant people. Don't understand what they're saying, but it's okay. I'm an engineer. First time they say, Sean, the tool is ready. Use it. So, of course, I choose an easy project because I wanted to make sure it's working just to help me make sure. And you enter the parameters in the tool. It takes about 10 minutes. I press enter, and I got exactly the price I was expecting. I've been excited since then. So now I know and I understand the full potential of AI. The secret is in the quality of the information you have. Next day, I'm doing another project, and this time it didn't give me what I was expecting because after going through the project, the problem was not the AI. The problem is the data you're putting in it, and when it's the machine is learning from the past projects, it will only repeat the mistakes that there are. It's learning from mistakes. So then you're going to see the estimators or the people that put all the information. So I'm actually very excited about the future. We've got another tools coming along in a couple of months, and when we realize where we can go right now, where the industry will be in 5 to 10 years, we're probably, and I tell people on my team, you are going through probably the biggest change right now in pre-construction. I'm a bit older. I've started with plans 25 years ago. I'm telling them the change you've seen with phones and tablets and in construction is the biggest change by far, and it's going to bring this industry to the next step. The thing is that we need all stakeholders also to work together. We can't do this alone, Pomerleau. We've done it in the past, with the Spot or the robot dog. We've partnered with PCL. We're reaching out to our partners and looking at how we can improve that. But we also need our clients. We need our trades. We need all the professionals, also schools, to be on board and work together. Because one of the biggest issues is standardization. There are no standards really in construction when you look at it.
Yeah,
So.
and Sam, you brought that up as well, kind of pour encadrer un peu la législation.
I think everyone at this table would admit that we're in an industry that's amongst the slowest technology adopters out there. And here we're talking about AI, but this poor table has to now address how are we going to use green steel, cement not made with traditional cement, and how those get all approved, and all the engineers prepared to put their stamp on it, et cetera, et cetera. There's a massive challenge at this table right here. So I think we need all the tools we can get.
And Brandon, what are you excited about?
Everything, really. I think...
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, because I could talk about this for hours, however boring it might sound. But for me, it's similar to what Sean and my other peers were talking about. We need to be more collaborative within the industry. We need to bring in the brain boxes of the world to work together so that Pomerleau and Elliston and PCL can work together. As part of, even being here today, we're working with Yeji Labs, who's helping us define and build out some use cases for our AI program. But one of the things that are really exciting is coming out of that program and some of the work that Yeji has done with us, we've found some very unique use cases around data that we thought we've all heard the adage, garbage in, garbage out. We thought we'd put garbage in and garbage would come out, but we were actually pretty surprised, and we've built our own cost forecasting platforms that are, 80 to 90% accurate just at this stage. So there's so much to be excited about, but it is going to require removing, ironically, a ton of barriers at this table so that we can engage with that table and we'll work together.
I think it'd be fun to check in on all of you in 1 year to see what's changed, what's
I'll be
better.
very tired.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn to Ali from ETS. Ali, you've heard everything, and your research is on multiple topics, but infrastructure and built environment, right? Talk to us about how these two intertwine, and also I want to hear your hot reaction from what you heard. Anything surprising?
The surprising thing is for me is that how in construction companies in Canada, how much the knowledge of AI and the application of AI is diffused, knowing that the construction industry is a bit resistant to change. And then I'll see in the spectrum of industry in Canada that the adoption of AI is growing, especially with the companies that are sitting at the table. So that's very exciting, and the positive attitude and also the positive insight to the future of the application of artificial intelligence. So this is exciting for me to see, and as a person in academia that does research, applied research with the industry, this is only good news for me because it gives an opportunity for us to advance the body of knowledge, at the same time have use cases that are applied. And that's why we are doing our research in this field in a close connection with the industry, and then we see the results. For example, in this panel with Danielle, we had a very successful project, and hopefully with the rest of the panel, we will continue the project. So that is very exciting, and then the potentials are there, use cases are countless. Yeah. And then for the infrastructure and construction, that was the other question. I think the
environment, yeah.
How they can, the use cases of artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is also a very broad area, is in both. And then so when we are talking about predictive analytics, when we are talking about modeling, when we are automatic modeling, when we are talking about interacting with in engineering documentation, it applies to both environments, infrastructure and buildings at the same time. So I see the applications in both areas, and then some overlapping applications. For example, interactions with the models or the automatic creation of engineering models.
Yeah, perfect. I think you wanted to take us through some of your research and some of the results of what you've been working on. Yes?
Very quickly, my current active projects. One is on the computer vision in two main axes. One on quality assessment, quality control in the production prefabrication environment, mainly collaborating with Can-Am. And also for waste management and monitoring. So we are monitoring the waste on the trucks, the demolition results of the demolition that is transported by trucks to make sure that they're going to the right landfills. And also we try to identify the mixture in waste containers to be able to better recycle them, which has environmental impacts. Another line of research is on natural language processing. So we are trying, the idea is to be able to interact with data models with natural language. So instead of, for modelers, for people who are using the data, instead of creating complicated queries, they just like talk to the system and then get the results out of multiple dispersed sources of information. So it's the project of data integration and applying natural language processing to be able to interact with the data. So there are two main axes: natural language processing and computer vision.
What is the influence, you think, where will we feel the influence most of AI and what's next in where your research is bringing you. You mentioned landfills, which is very interesting because I know for many companies that is a hurdle. That is a hurdle. So how do you see progress in that department?
In general, if we equip construction sites with cameras, we would be able to get a lot of information. For example, progress management is always challenging in construction project. So if we can understand the content of the videos, we can feed the systems to identify the progress of the project. At the same time, we can identify waste, we can identify the dangerous behavior of workers, but at the same time, there are other applications. For example, there is a lot of traction to use the computer vision for workers' productivity assessment. So this is an area that I'm personally not very much interested in, but there is so much research about that. So this is in terms of like analyzing video stream of the construction site. There is so much that can be taken out of that, and then the analysis that comes out of that data can use for better predictions. So and then can be used across the portfolio for future projects for better predictions. So these are the areas like using cameras on site. The other huge application is that because the buildings that are construction site new buildings, but we have most of the buildings are already built and they need to be maintained. So this is the area, and then these buildings, they're wasting a lot of energy, so we need to do a lot of analytics and a lot of engineering activities to make them eco-efficient. So a lot of AI algorithms can be used for that purpose, which is, I find it extremely important to make the current buildings better, more energy efficient, and more comfortable.
I want to hear all of you on the last question because I feel like it's the elephant in the room, which is the housing crisis, housing shortage. How is AI going to change the housing shortage? Is it going to influence it? What does your research say? I'm sure you've touched on it.
So if we use advanced algorithms, it's not just advanced technology, we can build faster, potentially, like on paper. We can make things faster, more efficient with lower cost. So all these technologies are eventually to reduce the cost and make the construction faster. So that corresponds to the housing crisis. And the demand is so high, and there is no other way than using the advanced technology. And also now the trajectory of construction is that construction, in my presentation I will talk about it, construction and manufacturing are getting closer to each other. So we are going towards building the way that things are built in the manufacturing industry. So that will also facilitate and make the development faster. And then in the manufacturing environment, we are using a lot of algorithms and methods within the realm of AI. So I'm sure that it will have direct effect on corresponding to the housing crisis, because we can make faster and better. Yeah.
Sam, do you feel like our governments have the reflex to check in with all of you and say, we have this huge issue, how can AI help us? What's your take? I know you're very close to, you talk to these guys often, so.
I mean, there is a really big challenge in this room right here, which is, every building we're in, including this one here, we thank somebody that someone looked at that design and put a stamp on it, because this massive roof doesn't have a lot of pillars, and yet it's not going to fall on our head because of that process and because of the traditions of the industry. The thing is that needs to change at the speed of which the challenges. So we talked about affordability, we mentioned climate before. This stuff is hitting us faster than most problems we've seen in the past. So then industries like the construction industry, we need to find a way to speed up the regulatory side, how do we encourage people to use new materials that are maybe less costly, environmentally friendly, et cetera, et cetera. If it goes at the regular pace it has over the last 20 years, I'm fearful that we won't get there. And so somehow between governments, building codes, the industry, we have to find a way to get that flywheel going faster.
To be speedier. And also on that topic, they say art reflects the moment we're living in. It's the same thing about construction. What people ask you is a reflection of the times we're in. What is the house of tomorrow, literally tomorrow? How is it going to be affected by AI? Like tangibly?
Tangibly, I would say from our perspective, the house of tomorrow will look exactly like the house of today. But the house in 10 years will look vastly different. And the reason being is, as we start to adopt these technologies and they become cheaper and more cost effective, then I think we'll start looking at smart buildings and smart homes, more cost-efficient ways of building things, and using AI, touching a little bit on what our colleagues were saying around the supply chain, and that's key. Like the supply chain is, from the general contractor's perspective, AI I think will solve a lot of problems from that perspective for the housing and labor shortages.
Sean, tangibly, how is the house of tomorrow going to look different because of AI?
I think it's going to be much cooler than it is today.
No more kitchen islands?
No. For sure AI is going to play a big part of that. He was talking about, prefabrication. I think the house of the future, the buildings of the future tomorrow will be a mixture of prefab, robotics, exoskeletons. AI has a lot to do with that. But I think also we need to understand more the metrics around our projects. Often clients, governments, they're all looking at the bottom number, dollars per square foot, and that's the problem. The problem is that is not what makes the project expensive. It's the design, it's the metrics, it's all these KPIs that we are looking at and explaining to clients. So the house of the future will be more efficient on that part also. You need all that square footage. You need all that space, that height. You need technology, but you need to make it smarter. And you need to understand those metrics that make projects expensive.
Didier, Daniel, est-ce que l'intelligence artificielle sera la plus grande influence dans la maison de demain, sur la maison de demain?
C'est clair que l'intelligence artificielle, en fin de compte, va sûrement éliminer la non-valeur ajoutée là, que souvent on retrouve un petit peu partout, que ce soit d'un point de vue administratif, que ce soit au niveau de la façon de gérer nos équipements, de la façon de faire de la maintenance, etc. etc. Donc je vois beaucoup d'opportunités avec l'intelligence artificielle. Et ça va être un changement, j'ai parlé tout à l'heure de la culture de la donnée, ça va être un changement parce que c'est aussi grand que l'introduction de l'ordinateur sur nos bureaux, parce que l'intelligence artificielle nous amène justement à revoir complètement nos pratiques d'un point de vue numérique. Donc, oui.
Daniel?
Very difficult to add up at this point, but according to me, just in every conference today, the data, accessibility to the data, quality of the data was mentioned by mostly every panelist today. I believe the house of the future will collect data, and company that builds them will transform this data into an evolving product. So the house of the future will be a product, and the house of the future will be an evolving product because AI is there to crush this data into some insight about how people live and how people want to live in the future. So I expect housing to evolve into that direction.
Perfect. This was enlightening. Daniel, Didier, Sean, Brandon, Sam, Ali, merci à nos panélistes.